Okay, here we go. Hello, Farel.
Hey, Brandon.
So this
100
is,
years.
yeah, this is kind of the return of the podcast that we were doing for a while last year.
That we did 100 years ago?
Yeah, we did. I think that we did 13 episodes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, between
Baker's
me
dozen?
and, yeah, Baker's 13. But yeah, I figured with pandemic stuff and me and you both being on opposite sides of the same city that we would actually start communicating via this, and we might as well record it and post it, because why not?
Yeah, we're like worlds away.
Yeah. How is your current life going? Yeah.
It's all right. What did I say? It was that quote I said to you. I think when you asked me text yesterday, I was like, I said something like north of cancer and south of okay or something like that. That was. Did you ever see that movie, Brawl in Cell Block 99?
No.
Like a Vince Vaughn movie.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot who the director was, but yeah, it's like this kind of, it's like a low budget. It has this kind of like B movie vibe to it, but it's pretty good. But he says that at one point. It's like south of okay, north of cancer, but south of okay, or something like that.
Okay, so it's like the disease cancer, though, right?
Yeah, I realized that you, having been a survivor, I probably shouldn't have used that expression. Sorry.
I think I had the most. Yeah, it's weird with the cancer stuff because it's just to start off light here. It's like, I was thinking about it the other day, like I kind of ignored, this is the weird way I deal with traumatic events in my life, is I'm just like, everything's fine. And then like 3 years later, I'm just like, holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know.
That was a close one.
Yeah.
It's pretty intense, man.
That was a close one. It keeps me working sometimes. I'm just like, I should be dead. Time to draw another comic page.
Mm.
So I guess
glad you're not.
Thank you. I'm also glad you're alive. So I realized when we were doing the podcast before that no matter what we were talking about, we would find some way to work Spider-Man into it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It was funny you suggested we talk about Amazing Fantasy 15.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I was like, we need to become Spider-Man experts and read through all of them again, because clearly that is the link of our friendship.
Well, what did you think about my idea of us going through and do every episode having like a issue of Spider-Man? We don't have to do it like sequentially, like starting at Spider-Man 1 and going, but like maybe if there's like
that'd be cool,
certain issues that are really stand out, we could be like, oh, we read this issue or something.
Yeah, because we don't need to like be like, yeah, the entirety of Spider-Man, be like, what happens? But it'd be kind of cool to be like, let's do Craven's Last Hunt. Or
yeah, you kind of get the gist of the Ditko and Lee stuff after a couple issues, you know. Yeah. Yeah, I like that you suggested that, because it's like, is the reason because of Stevenson talking about it, that it was like this real tight 11-page story?
That was part of it, yeah, because kind of pre-pandemic, we would go and hang out with our publisher at Image, and he would talk about how, like he was kind of deconstructing early comic book, like early comic self-contained issues, and how early Kirby and Ditko stuff was like really like this kind of perfect comic book format that's been kind of lost through time. Mm-hmm. And about how nice it'd be returned back to, which is cool, because it's I've taken that on in my next series after the one that is announced right now, the thing I'm kind of writing right now. I'm trying to do that self-contained, like shorter issues format. Mm-hmm. So this is good study for that too.
Well, one of the things, and I remember Stevenson talking about this, but I like how they, and it's the same thing in those Fantastic Four, so it might have had something to do with Lee's writing style, but I like how they broke up these like really like fairly short stories into chapters. Yeah. Like even in this Amazing Fantasy 15, there's like part 1, part 2, you know, where it's like, there was just like an ad in between these, you know, couple of pages. Like,
yeah, it's done in such a way of like Spider-Man is broken. There's a 6-page opening sequence, and then it ends it in 5 pages after an ad. And it has this like, yeah, it feels like, we'll return after these messages. And then it's like part 2.
Yeah. Well, it's
Or
like each page is there's so much that happens in each page. You know, it's like the opening, the first page is like a splash page, right? Which like
yeah,
sort of just sums up the whole story there. Like in intros, even has the, if I remember correctly, I think it's on the thing. It's like the image of Spider-Man like on the wall behind him, you know?
yeah, it's like a
Something.
gigantic, um, it's like a gigantic shadow behind him with a spider, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just basically like the first page just establishes that Peter Parker's a dweeb and no one
Yeah,
likes him.
yeah, totally.
And,
Like
but
Flash Thompson and all those are just being dicks.
yeah, and they're just like,
I like that he's kind of an incel too. He's like this like hateful oh, these are the like Aunt May and Uncle Ben are the only people that have ever been nice to me. I couldn't give a hang about the rest of the world or something.
yeah, yeah. I fully in reading this first issue again, it's like Peter Parker. I feel like Uncle Ben dying is the best thing that could have happened to him because
Oh,
he
100%.
sucked.
And it being his fault is the best thing that could happen to him.
Yeah,
Like,
because he does that
yeah,
thing where he basically, as soon as he gets any power, he's like, "I'm just going to be a piece of shit."
yeah, and even like the teacher, like going like, you're such a good, clean cut, good honor student. You know, it's like I would want to beat that kid up. What a dweeb.
Yeah, I like the caption on the very first page. It says, "It's like costume heroes. Confidentially, we in the comic mass business refer to them as long underwear characters." I thought it was really amusing reading it. I was like, it's not confidential if you're publishing it in a fucking Spider-Man comic.
Yeah, you're mass producing a
Yeah,
thing and saying it. But that was like Lee's power was to be able to like pull you into his little, you know, into his club or whatever.
yeah. No, he had a really fun way to do dialogue. I was reading some about some of his Ditko stuff and how he would just like call people over the phone and just like tell them his story ideas, and then they'd be like, okay, and draw that thing, and that was kind of the Marvel method early on.
Mm-hmm.
It's really fascinating. It almost feels like weirdly freeing to have somebody be like, here's the plot, figure it out, and have that loose restriction.
Yeah, I wonder too, like, I mean, given the way like my career has gone, and I mean, I can't speak for you, but like, I was when reading this, I was specifically thinking about Ditko being in what was that?
That was my career.
Burn it all down. Um, I was thinking about like how weird that would be to be Steve Ditko or something. Like just how alien that is. Like he's this, like because he's the drawings in this first. I mean, I love it. I love the art, but it's like I mean they're pretty crude compared to like 5 years later or 10 years later or whatever after this.
Right.
And
I mean,
so it's
Ditko
like
always was a little crude, though.
yeah, but so it's like, what was that like to just have like a hit book like that? And it's like, oh, I don't have to worry about like money ever again. Like maybe he wasn't thinking that, or maybe he didn't get paid that much at first, but it was like, I mean, this was like a hit book, like right away.
Yeah, or somebody like Kirby, who was such a like struggling artist for so long and had so many problems like getting work before he was
Or
like,
being
40s.
exploited by, all the, like the
Sure.
whoever published Captain America, Timely or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was. Yeah, I wonder because it seemed like Ditko was kind of set, but I know Kirby. I mean, certainly Kirby, his kind of struggle with Marvel and DC is kind of more public.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I know that he wasn't. Because I remember at one point asking someone who had gone to Kirby's house when he was alive. It's a friend of mine was talking about like how like he'd gotten the impression that Kirby died kind of destitute, and I think it was Stevenson who was like, "Oh no, he had a pool," he was like he was doing okay, just maybe
Well,
not as good as.
didn't he work at animation and stuff too? Like after in his older age, or
I don't know. I don't know too much about like because I
maybe
know
I'm getting him mixed up with Alex Toth or whatever.
Yeah, because Alex Toth definitely worked in animation. Because I know Kirby's biggest check he ever got was from Image.
Oh wow.
Yeah, which is cool.
Yeah.
And not for one of his best comics.
Did they ever like set up some kind of, because I know they don't call them royalties at Marvel, but some kind of like incentive program, where you get like, if a book sells really well, you get part of the profits off of it or something.
That's a good question because I know for years there was like lots of like kind of Kirby family lawsuits going back and forth.
Mm.
But yeah, I don't know where it ended up.
Hmm.
I mean, I guess
Yeah, I
it
don't know.
probably was
I was
going
just
on.
thinking, reading this, thinking about like how like what it must be like you just like, oh, I'll create this, I'll do the Spider-Man story, like Lee, yeah, like you said, like Lee's just like draw him fighting Doctor Octopus or whatever, you know. So he
Yeah,
just like goes and draws this comic, drops it off at Marvel, doesn't talk to Stan or whatever, and then just like, you
like
know,
it's a hit. Yeah, also especially interesting because Ditko is such a kind of Ayn Randian. What's the term for that? His kind of political beliefs.
yeah, I know. It's called. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on it. But I know what you're talking about. Yeah, he was
Yeah,
super into the black and white. You know, like
yeah,
it's
like
right and wrong. There's no, you know.
yeah, like he
What
didn't
is
say
that
he was
called?
Mr. A.
Yeah,
Um,
but yeah, I heard that they just couldn't stand each other, or like that. I guess he was so sensitive, and like he had a hard time like not getting like offended, I guess, at Stan Lee. You
yeah,
know, so
that's
Stan Lee would just stay in his office when he would show up, you know, drop artwork off, and you know.
yeah. Well, the story I'd read about Lee and this is hot goss from the '60s, but the story I'd heard about Lee and Ditko was that Ditko was basically frustrated with kind of because I think Lee was very just like he was like just like a swinging hip cat
uh,
on, and he was just like very much like in tune with the cool kid politics of the day, and I think Ditko being um, much more conservative in his politics kind of disagreed with what Lee was having him draw, and I think he changed the dialogue to make it more pro politics that Ditko didn't agree with.
Objectivism.
Objectivism, that's it. I'm glad you
Yeah, I
found
just
it.
looked it up. Sorry, I was listening to you though.
Well, it's not the thing that you run into very often. It's not just like, oh,
Yeah,
fucking Jim's a real objectivist.
I think that I don't know if I've ever recommended that hyper normalization documentary to you.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I think they talk Adam Curtis. I think he talks about it in there. If it's not in that one, it's in the All Watched Over by Machines of Loving Grace series
Mm-hmm.
that he did. But yeah, I guess a lot of Silicon Valley types sort of have based their life off, you know, like in the '90s or whatever. Based were like into objectivism, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a very. Um, I think it's nice to have a belief system, and it's almost objectivism seems almost comforting in how uncomforting it is. It's just like this is the cold, harsh realities of the world. You do this, and you always follow this rule.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Well, and also too, like, was it? I think David Cross has like a joke about this, but like, didn't Ayn Rand like die in like public housing, like government assist, like all the stuff that she was like, like
yeah,
against? You know, she was like, you know, it's kind of a hypocritical. It basically just being selfish, you know.
yeah.
But you
And I
have
think a
to,
lot of
in
it
order to
was
survive in life, you have to have a community. You have to, you know, have to do unto others, you know, that kind of, those kind
yeah.
of principles are good because they're like what keeps mankind, you know, going on and not killing itself, you know.
Yes, no, I certainly agree. But I feel like Rand was such a reactionary to coming from like a communist country and being like very just like everything is everyone's, and she came over here and just like fuck no, everything is
Yeah, it's like,
mine.
oh, your husband's mine now.
Yeah.
Like,
So I
well,
can
let's see.
understand it as like a reactionary thing to it, but it's a weird thing to kind of, and it's always interesting too because Ditko showing his worldview through comic books and having such a specific objectivist stance on things is very fascinating, and like how you tell a story with that.
Well, and it's interesting too because that's kind of goes along with what I'm saying with like the Spider-Man thing. It's like I'm sure he had his struggles and challenges and stuff,
Sure.
but he had like an office in Manhattan till he died.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's like that probably wasn't cheap. You know, maybe because of rent control it was, but relatively. But
Well, it's always weird for us to look at comic book people from other eras because the reality of comic books now is just like we're basically making zines and living off of it, you know.
Exactly. Or yeah, scraping by, like
Yeah,
barely surviving. You know, it's not like
yeah, it's not like
either one of us are getting rich off any of this.
sure, yeah, but it's like even just hearing about, um, you know, this guy bought a house and had a car, and it's like, come on, fucking Narnia.
Yeah, like in well, even in like the '90s or whenever Mad Men came out, you
Yeah,
know, like self-published Mad Men #1. I think like I heard I was like Shrek or someone told me that and Mike Allred like bought a house with that, like off an independent comic book, you know.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's the stories of Old Image where they'd be like, a guy would do an issue, and then he'd go and like, you know, buy a house and set up a big music studio, and they'd have to call him up and be like, dude, come back to comics. We need a second issue out of you. And it's like, I'm fine.
I know you inked that Pit issue, but
Yeah. Yeah, because I probably said before, remember when Simon Roy first heard what the original artists were making on Prophet when he did more issues than them? He was just like, God damn it.
oh yeah, that's rough. Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, it's a different animal. And I've been thinking more and more about leaning into that. Like I just read the Dave Sim kind of guide to self-publishing.
It's the Cerebus Guide to get it
Yeah.
right. It's the Cerebus Guide.
The Cerebus guide.
It's Dave Sim's Cerebus Guide.
Yeah. And what was my point in talking about it?
Leaning into
right.
making any money.
Yeah, no, he's talking about, there's a very long section of it where he talks about comics and popular culture, and it's all about basically how television won the battle and how everything else is kind of like subservient to television, which I guess would kind of be the internet now. And I read it and it was like kind of like, it's kind of a weird positive view of it at the end, but I also feel like that's where I arrived at the zine thing recently. I was like, I want comics. I feel like the way that comics succeed is they become more niche, at least for me personally. It's like, I just want to make a comic that's like this object that you can't get anywhere else. That's not trying to compete with a movie. It's just a very personal, weird thing.
Mm. Yeah. I feel like that's kind of the way you've always approached doing.
I'm leaning into it. I'm going crazy now. Yeah, no, it is, but I think even more so, like approaching that as like a goal more than just, because I did certain comics. I always feel like when I worked on Prophet, it was when we worked on Prophet, it was such an attempt to make something that was like more mainstream for me. And I think it was in some, like, I feel like.
Oh, for sure. Because you were working with a team. You weren't doing everything yourself. That was like the first thing you did. Maybe as far as I know, the only thing you did where you were like the writer on it.
Yeah, aside from just like short miniseries and things. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm actually like I'm working on a bunch of short stories now, and kind of my brain works that way where I was like, oh, I'm writing it for other people, and now I've got like 4 artists in mind to do this like kind of connected thing.
That's cool.
Yeah,
I like that guy Matt Kint. Like he does that a lot too, where he's like,
oh yeah,
he'll do his own comics, but then he writes comics for a bunch of people. He's prolific, man.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't understand how people, like, I get so focused. I can bounce like 2 projects back and forth at most. Mm-hmm. But like those guys that do like 5 books a month, it's just like, I don't know how you stop thinking about one thing to move on to another thing.
I mean, I've been working on 4 projects simultaneously, but they all are going so slow. Just because like I definitely work faster if I'm like focused, you know? So it's like constantly splitting my attention. It's like, you know, trying to think of like a system to get it all the stuff done that I need to get done. But yeah, I respect people that can actually like meet deadlines and still are able to, you know, produce that amount of work.
Oh yeah, before we started recording, I was telling you a little bit about my system I'm trying out this week.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so basically what I did is I made a list of what I want to accomplish every day this week, and with the idea that I'm going to do 4 things, whether it be, you know, 4 things is like a bare minimum and then I have a thing where I match that by what I'm actually doing every day. Because there's so many things that are work that I think in the past I'd be like, oh, I didn't meet this deadline that I want to do on this thing. But now if I'm actually like writing down what I did in a day, it creates a whole new thing where I'm like, well, this was important and this was still work. And it just kind of balances it. So I don't beat myself up about not doing stuff. And then I still have this like 4, like this week I did 2 comic book pages and 2 commissions. Uh-huh. and it feels like an accomplishment to do that. Where
Congratulations. Sorry, I didn't mean to just.
Thank you.
Where's my award? I like that you said that, because when you first told me what you were doing, I was like, oh my God, that sounds like anxiety inducing, because like so much of my life is spent like lying to myself.
Sure.
Like every day, or I'm just like, oh, I'm going to get this thing done. And then it's like a month later and I haven't even made a dent on it, you know? And it's like the only way it's like I can stay sane is just like pretending that I didn't do that, you know? So it's like, it's like if you're writing things down and be like, oh, this is actually what I did, and you're actually doing things that you needed to do. It's not just like, you know, beating myself up because I watched too much TV, or, you know, laid in bed an extra a couple hours or something.
Yeah. Well, it's more from it's the reality of it, and because I do think I operate partially on the idea that I'm never doing enough, and that makes me do something. But in writing it down, it does require me to actually, like, I don't want to have wasted days.
It's like you're holding yourself accountable, but you're also kind of rewarding yourself in a way of like, you know, patting yourself on the back, you know?
Yeah, and I'll write down bullshit too. Like I played Mario Brothers. I played a Mario Brothers game in there, and I was like, well, I did this today.
Oh, okay.
I'm the only one that sees
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but it'll be like kind of how
all of the Breaking Bads today.
Well, okay, so back to the Cerebus Guide to Self-Publishing. There's a line in it where he talks about how he's like, look at what stops you from doing the work you want to do in a day. It's like, is that more important to you than getting that work done? And if not, then consider cutting that out, or choose one. And for me, it's like, well, I'm just going to do comics. I'm going to do art for a living and full time. But it's like, it is about kind of having the choice. Like, it is more important sometimes for you to like call your mom, and more important a few times just to like sleep and go for a walk than it is to be like at the desk. Because he's like,
you were describing my day right now. Called my mom, slept, and I went for a walk.
Yeah, I mean, that's a decent day for me. It's like,
except you missed the burrito that I ate too.
Oh, I wouldn't say I missed it.
There's like a burrito cart in Selwood. I probably shouldn't say this out if anyone in Portland's listening to this, but that is my favorite place.
In the dumpster.
Yeah. No, I mean, they wear masks, and it's all, you know, it's outside and stuff, you know, it's never like super crowded there necessarily, but yeah, I love that burrito place. Soy curl burritos.
Oh, nice.
So good.
I went to a burger place as my favorite. It was like a little burger shack called Burger Stevens.
I never heard of that.
Yeah, it was really good.
Was it an indoor sit-down place?
No, it's just it was like a shack that you walk up to.
Oh, okay, like a kind of like a cart or something where you sit outside. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's weird. It's like, because I guess they're shutting down, not to get into the Rona business, but like, I guess like Wednesday they're doing not lockdown, but they're doing restrictions on a lot of stuff. So like no indoor eating. And I'm like, what, people are eating indoor? Like, I'm like shocked. They're like, what? Because like our pal Gabriel's been working at B-Side.
Yeah. And I've
one day a week.
I was softened a little bit. Like I've been in a B-Side twice.
But, and so I don't even know what the setup's like. If it's like, oh, they have that back patio and like a front patio now.
It's weird when you're selling booze too, because what do you do? Just like take your whiskey and stand on the corner.
Yeah, pretty much. I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. Your paintings in there are really nice, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Cool. Yeah.
It's cool to see those.
Yeah, I just went to the studio the other day, and I inked a page while I was there, so I felt pretty good. I was like, oh, this is actually the reason I went here. I accomplished the reason I went here. It's like I went there to ink a page, and I did it. So.
That is always amazing. Oh, you know, I always talk about how the thing that keeps me chained to a desk sometimes is audiobooks. I just started listening to one of the recent Murakami books.
Oh, nice. I have like a huge list of audiobooks that I had a bunch of stuff on hold at the library, and I was like burning through books. Mm-hmm. And then I guess like when all the election stuff started happening, I kind of like I'm still kind of having a hard time like concentrating on listening to things, and you know, so I'll keep switching, like try to get me distracted from my crazy thoughts. And yeah, I have like a ton I need to catch up on, but I've been listening to The Witcher. You know,
Oh,
that
nice.
the Netflix show The Witcher, they're based off, I guess, like, I don't know if it's like based off a video game or the video, but there's like books.
Yeah.
There's like an author. I think
Is the Witcher? Is the Witcher? He's like a guy that hunts witches, right?
no. He hunts monsters. He's a
Okay.
monster killer.
Is he a witch?
He's a monster killer for hire.
Okay.
So he's got like this code and all this stuff, but it's really interesting. I liked the show. The show was like super fun. You know, I thought like the acting and all that stuff. But the books are I like them better because I feel like it's like, you know, the world's more expansive. You know, so you kind of get like more of a grasp on like that. It's this. I feel like it's not Earth, but it's like this world where people from Earth came like a long time ago or something. So there's all these like different, like there's elves and magic and all this stuff, but it's not, it's like, you know, like in Conan, you like, what is that any kind of geographical region that exists anymore? You know, the Hyperborea or whatever.
Do you know about He-Man? Do you know He-Man's, in the He-Man cartoon, the backstory was that He-Man's mom was an astronaut from Earth?
No.
Yeah.
That makes that way cooler for some weird reason.
It does, because it's like, because it's not just dumb Earth now, it's like this weird thing where it's like influenced by Earth culture, but it makes sense that there's like, you know, whatever weird Manny faces and things on there.
Yeah, there's like the weird mix of science fiction and fantasy stuff, and
yeah, exactly.
Huh, that's interesting. Yeah, but yeah, these Witcher books are pretty good. I like them.
Nice.
Should we go back to talking about this amazing fantasy thing?
Let's get into these Spidermans. Yeah.
I'm gonna look at my phone. I have to take my glasses off to look at my phone here, but sure. I took a bunch of screen caps of it because I was looking at it on the internet. I was just gonna go through some of these pages. What was this?
It's interesting.
Oh yeah, this was the first one. He's like, "Keep up the good work, Parker, and you're sure to rate a scholarship when you graduate." Oh, like that's another one where he says "clean cut." There's one of these panels where he's like,
"Oh, you're talking about the panel where it basically is just like, because in the beginning it basically is like, Peter Parker sucks, and all the other students are like, oh, this fucking loser," and then it's just like, basically like, anyone over 40 loves him, anyone under 40 hates him.
Yeah, and well, he asks this girl Sally out, and Flash Thompson comes along and like pushes him out of the way.
Yeah, she's really frank about it too. She's like, for the umpteenth time, you're just not my type. And that's the other thing too, is it makes him seem like an asshole because she's like, how many times I got to tell you?
Yeah, like boundaries, bro. Yeah. It's like, why do you just keep hitting on Sally? Like, why are you fixated on Sally? Does that mean he's like asked a bunch of other girls, or I don't know?
I don't know. And yeah, and it's weird too because Flash Thompson shows up and she's like, I'm much more into this dreamboat, Flash Thompson. He's like, I admire your good taste. And it's kind of weird too.
Like he was listening to the whole conversation.
Yeah, and it's just like, it's not that he's like, I like you too. It's just like, I am also into me.
Why are Peter Parker's aunt and uncle so goddamn old? Like, I mean, he's in high school and Aunt May looks like she's like 80 years old or something.
That is true. And do you know where his parents are?
I thought they were like clones or something weird.
No, I mean, like,
they don't really say, right?
Isn't that weird that we know he's in Queens, we know all this stuff about him, we know where he works, but like, where are your parents?
Yeah, that must have been why they made those like dumb clone stories. Sorry, whoever wrote them. I don't mean to offend you, but
the artist
I just call them dumb.
Died this year, I believe.
What, really?
Yeah, I think so. Because I went to SCAD years ago. I'm not going to remember the guy's name, but I went to SCAD years ago, the Georgia Comic Book
Savannah College of Art and Design.
That's it. And I sat in on a class, and the teacher was talking about, it was a really cool thing. I think I've talked about it with you before, but they were basically projecting students' comics on the wall, and the teacher would go over like the pages and be like, let's talk about why the storytelling works here and doesn't work. And I was like, man, this guy really knows his stuff. Like, who is this guy? One of the students was like, he's the clone Spider-Man artist. I was like, what?
Wait, wasn't that Mark Bagley that drew those?
Oh, no, Mark Bagley didn't he do the Spider-Man 2099?
No, that's Rick Leonardi, and those were awesome. I love those. We should do a podcast about 2099 Spider-Man, which I think he's going to be in the Spider-Verse more.
Oh, interesting. Because 2099 Spider-Man had that cool thing where the fictional city in it, he actually like had fixed locations. The only one I can think of off the top of my head. And so it's like there'd be like the downtown would always look like like it did, and he would change angles, and you'd see the big skyscrapers from different sides and things like that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's
I
really
just remember
cool.
it had that cool thing, which I've seen in like a couple movies and cartoons and things like that, but where it's like all the new futuristic fancy cities built on top of the old decrepit
Oh yeah, like
underlying dark city, you know? So it's like all the like, poor people and riffraff and stuff are all like in the subterranean,
right.
you know, the old crumbling buildings, and then like up top everything looks new and shiny. And
So Spider-Man 2099, didn't they do a thing where Peter Parker's whole thing in the original Spider-Man is he's a lame dweeb, and then when he's Spider-Man, he can be a cool, quippy guy.
yeah, he's like sassy and yeah, funny.
Did they do an opposite thing like that, where it's like a cool guy who was just like a silent ninja when he's Spider-Man or something?
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know, I can't speak for Peter David, but I reading that as a teenager when I read those, I was very aware of that. I was like, he's everything opposite of Peter Parker.
Is that Bruce Wayne though? Is that kind of
Like,
Batman?
Well, I felt like it wasn't like, because Batman becomes like scary and psycho and intimidating, and then he's like billionaire playboy. I felt like I'm blanking on his name. What's the character's name? The Spider-Man in 2009. It's like
His name
Rodriguez or something.
Jim 2099.
No, he's got like a
Yeah, and I remember he's Hispanic.
yeah. Anyway, that character, he's like a jerk. He's like a total shit, like a total mean person.
Is he aware
So
of
he's
it?
always being real sarcastic, and he's like arrogant. And even to his like relationship with his mom, he like calls her crazy lady because she's got like.
His name is Miguel O'Hara.
Yeah, Miguel O'Hara. That's it.
Is that like is that like Mexican Irish?
Yeah, I think it is. I think they mentioned that in the comic.
Okay.
I think his like mom is Mexican, and then his dad is Irish or something.
Okay.
But I don't think his dad's right. I think it's just like his mom. His mom's sort of taking the place of like Aunt May, but instead of him having this loving, guilt-ridden relationship, he's like, "Get away from me, crazy lady!" I just remember him being like a total dick to her. I was like, "Oh, this is like," and even like, yeah. So it's like when he's like a scientist guy, he's a jerk, and then when he has like the Spider-Man outfit on, it's not like he's a silent ninja. I feel like he's actually awkward. Like he's like, you know, he doesn't talk much or doesn't know what to say. You know, he's like fighting for his life and trying to figure out how to use his webs, you know, and all that kind of stuff.
He's a lame nerd.
Yeah, he's more like the nerd in the suit.
Uh-huh.
Like,
how many times do I have to tell you, Spider-Man, for the umpteenth time, Spider-Man 2099? Because what's the deal with Miles Morales? Does he kind of have? He's just kind of regular? He's cool all the time, right?
I've never read the comics, but
Like
it seemed like
Spider-Man.
there wasn't really much of a difference between him and the outfit. It seemed kind of the same way with all the characters in that, like the Gwen and the regular Peter Parker and all that stuff. They were all just sort of like, you know, cool, confident guys, or, you know, lazy dude or whatever, you know, either in costume or out of costume. You know. Where he was actually in the costume the whole time, but he just didn't have a mask on a lot, right? He was never in just like street clothes in that movie. I mean, Miles was, but not the Peter Parker guy.
Oh, the Peter Parker from like the old middle-aged Peter Parker. Yeah.
This the panel, I think it's page 5, but the one where he first clings to a wall.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of the stuff in here, a lot of these panels in here are just like tattooed on my brain. Like I just remember that's such a specific image that I totally like.
Oh, when a car drives by and he just jumps up on the wall.
Yeah, he just jumps up and he drops his books.
Mm-hmm.
But I like that like the guys that almost hit him are just like such assholes.
Like that was one
egghead who won't daydream anymore when he crosses the street. The other guy's like, "You can say that again." Just like hanging off the wall as like, books are dropping. He's like, "How do they know he's an egghead? Because he had books and glasses." Like,
I like that he's like doing a superhuman feat, and they're like, "Look at that sad nerd."
Yeah. Well, it's funny because like he the panel like right above it, there's like 2 scientists that look almost exactly the same. I think one has like a mustache, but those guys are the definitive eggheads there. They have,
right.
Their heads
caught it from him.
Little eggs.
He caught Egghead from him. Yeah, I feel like that's the fun part of the Lee dialogue is when he would like. If it's obvious that like it's not necessary for the people in the car to be dicks, but it's almost like he's going in there looking for a reason to like. What do I write in this to make it fun?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm like glad it's in there, but yeah, it seems it's kind of unrealistic in like a fun way, whereas like the dialogue in that John Byrne X-Men comic you sent. Oh, maybe we shouldn't. I don't want to say anything bad. Well, I guess
Uh,
who cares, John Byrne. But
no, yeah, we should talk about that one briefly because, yeah, right
the
before we
dialogue in
start
that is
talking.
just bad, bad weird. I think
Sure.
like it's
Well,
not.
yeah,
It takes like all the fun out of it. It's just like what? Like it's so clunky and odd.
sure. I should explain what that is, though. So John Byrne of X-Men fame, um,
And amongst other things, Fantastic Four. He's a
Next Men.
really prolific artist, especially in the '80s when he was like doing Wonder Woman and Superman and all this stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So he's just started doing his own basically fan fiction, continuing his X-Men run, which is online somewhere. And yeah, it's kind of fantastic. It's like
He's not inking it or coloring it. It's just pencils and letters,
yeah.
right?
But I'll say it like so like on Instagram lately, I've been reading through all the Tintin books for the last
Right.
6 months or whatever, and I've reached the end of it where Hergé died 3/4 way through, kind of roughing out the last Tintin book.
Brandon's stifling belches, by the way. This little.
Thank you.
It doesn't show up on the.
I hope it shows. So Hergé didn't finish the book, and somebody else took it on and basically took his roughs and redrew the whole final book. And it's really crude and not as good as Hergé, obviously, but I'm glad that it exists.
Huh.
It's like a non-official kind of bootleg version, and that's kind of how I feel about the Ditko, or sorry, about the John Byrne stuff, where it's like it's kind of weird and not great, but it's kind of so cool that it exists, that he's even doing it. That I have to push it on that level.
It's like a strange kind of impressiveness. Like,
yeah.
Like it's just like, yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of cool that he's, I guess, following his bliss, as they say.
Sure. Yeah.
Because Marvel's not publishing it or anything, right? It's just strictly on the internet.
Yeah. Yeah. It's got to be weird to have that much of your kind of personal identity probably tied to a thing that you have no control of anymore.
Well, I told you about that. I think like he just likes. I mean, it seems like he he's like a kind of a famous grumpy shit talker, I guess, right?
Sure.
I don't know if that's like a thing with him, but when I was in Walt Simonson's class at SVA, if stop me if I've told this already, but
that's a good story.
He took our whole class. Simonson took our whole class to John Byrne's house in Connecticut. I think he like rented a van, I remember us all going there together. So maybe he just drove us, or we took like a couple of cars. Anyway, that's just not really the point of the story. But like while he was inking a Wonder Woman comic. Like he brought us up into his studio. Like he took us around the house a little bit, and like we talked with him. But I feel like most of the time spent was in his studio space, where he was working on a Wonder Woman page. And I think he was writing and drawing, or at least drawing 3 books a month then.
Okay.
Which is so crazy to me. I just can't believe that anyone could draw 3 books a month, let alone draw it and then write stuff. But while he was doing that, he also had on his computer, he had like a couple other rooms where it's like his comics, so like all of his comics that are being published, like okay. I remember seeing like copies of Hellboy and stuff, because he did, he scripted like the first series of that.
Oh, that's right.
But then he also had like Fantastic Four #1 just sitting there, where I was like, oh, you have this just sitting here? And he was like, oh yeah, I'm going to bind it into these books, because he binds like all of his comics.
Oh, sure.
Into these books. But I was like, why don't you just make Xeroxes of that and then sell that for like whatever, $3,000 or however much it's worth? But it's none of my business, whatever. Right. But what I was getting at was that while he's doing these 3 books a month, he's like, oh yeah, this is what I'm doing in my free time. And he had like a computer there, like an old Mac, because I guess this was like 1997. So it was like, I don't even know if Photoshop existed then, but it was like early days of like digital coloring and stuff still.
Sure. And
he was coloring on his computer a muscular lady, like what do you call the
bodybuilder?
Yeah, like a bodybuilder lady, like kind of doing a flex pose, and he was coloring her green. like the She-Hulk. Like he was doing a She-Hulk coloring thing, like, just for fun.
Yeah, he's like, coming to my masturbatorium.
Yeah, I'm learning. Yeah, exactly. But I guess he was like learning how to color on the computer, like in the early days of that.
Sure.
With his She-Hulk drawing, I'm like, and then maybe he was just doing it as like, oh, I'm practicing my coloring skills so I can color my own books. Like maybe that was the point of it. I don't know. But I just thought it was so strange. Like, you're really into She-Hulk, man. You did like graphic novel. You did a She-Hulk series.
Like, are you gonna be okay?
Years later, you're like,
you're painfully into She-Hulk.
Like, it's like, that guy loves comics, man. So it's like, it kind of makes sense that he'd do this, like, oh, I'm doing a fan story of a comic that I used to draw.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's weird how your identity gets so tied to things. I'm always impressed by people that are good at something and can leave it behind. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like, I don't think I could stop doing comics at this point.
Yeah, but I remember him too, like back in the day, like, do you remember that comic Star Brand?
Yeah, the New Universe book?
Yeah, the Jim Shooter's New Universe at Marvel. I saw Arcudi had posted like an Instagram thing.
Oh yeah, John Arcudi did a he took over Star Brand in the end or something?
I don't know. I didn't know that if that's the case, but what he posted was issue 1, which was Jim Shooter wrote it.
That's right.
John Romita Jr. drew it, and Al Williamson inked it. It was like the artist team on the Daredevil run that I love so much, the end of 6 Daredevil run.
That's a nice lineup.
Later, like after they were done, it kind of they sort of rebranded the whole New Universe. Mm-hmm. And so it kind of went and through it. I think it might have had a couple different artists between, but then John Byrne took it over, wrote it, drew it, all that stuff. Maybe colored it. I don't know if someone else colored it or lettered it.
He could sneeze and put it. New Universe was so weird because it was essentially like the idea was Marvel Comics were getting too far away from the real world, and it was almost like this is superheroes but set in a more realistic in our world.
Yeah, well, I think the idea that Jim Shooter was proposing, like from the start, was like it's the world outside your window until this event happened, the white event.
Right.
And then once the white event happened, then you started getting like superheroes here and there. And Star Brand was like, I felt like kind of like the Superman. Like he gets his power from an alien. Doesn't it? What's that?
Didn't Milestone kind of work that way? And obviously Milestone was later. You know, DC Comics kind of black urban.
I just assumed that those were part of the DCU.
I think they became part of the DC universe.
Okay. See, I didn't read DC Comics, so I was like, oh, DC's doing something? I don't care. Like back then, now like I'd actually be interested in reading those. But yeah, so like in the comic, in Star Brand, after John Byrne took over, I don't know if it was like one of his early issues or what, but like I remember they go to a comic convention. Mm-hmm. Because like when John Byrne took over, it was all of a sudden, instead of having that like motorcycle outfit and no mask, he wore like his girlfriend makes him a suit. So he has like a superhero suit.
Oh, it's so embarrassing. Your girlfriend makes a suit and you gotta wear it.
Yeah.
Like, why are you guys out and fight aliens? Why aren't you wearing your suit? Like,
John Byrne designed it.
Yeah.
So he has like, he puts on the suit, whatever. He goes to a comic convention. Mm-hmm. And at the comic convention is John Byrne, like writing and drawing himself there, along with, I guess, some other people at Marvel.
Sure.
And so I guess this isn't supposed to be set. Yeah, it's okay. So since this is a Marvel book, that makes sense. So I don't even remember who these other characters are. I probably should look up the comic. But in the comic, there's a fan. Mm-hmm. I think it's like one of the only lines that the character John Byrne has in the thing. But he's like, the fan is like, I just really wish you'd draw X-Men again. And then John Byrne is like trying to strangle the kid, like reaching his arms across the table to like, like, let me at him. I'm going to kill him. Just let me kill him a little bit or something like that. And like someone is holding him back. And he's like, this is why he doesn't do conventions anymore or something like that.
He'll murder a child.
So like that always stuck with me. I was like, oh, he must hate X-Men. He must hate that he did it. He's just sick of Chris Claremont and sick of fans asking him to do it again. So when I saw these pages, I was like, what? He's drawing X-Men just for fun? Like 16 issues? That's like so much work for something that you're like so anti,
But maybe, I mean, who knows? I mean, 40 years.
Yeah, and it was probably just like a gag he did for the comic. Like, it probably not real life or anything.
Yeah, I mean, he's not complaining if you hand him She-Hulk.
Yeah.
How many issues of She-Hulk is he secretly drawn? They're going to be unearthed like a tomb after his death. Just be like, oh, we got a lot of erotic She-Hulk pages here. Like an insane, like a forest was destroyed for him to draw these very erotic She-Hulk comic books. All of her having sex with She-Hulk and John Byrne.
He has like 7 iMacs that are just like in the corner that aren't being used anymore. That are just the hard drives maxed out with She-Hulk colored drawings of
bodybuilders.
Yeah, bodybuilders. It's okay. Amazing Fantasy 15.
So we were going through the part where like, so something I think we might have
He's climbing up the wall.
He's climbing up something. One of the things that I think that we might have touched on before is the idea of how much they fit in every scene in this, and how it's just like he gets his powers and he's immediately, it's just like a few minutes later and he's just like going to like a wrestling ring.
Yeah, that's like on the next page. It's like one page he like climbs up the wall, he basically discovers he has powers, and it ends with that cool shot of this spider in the foreground.
Oh yeah, it's like looking through a spider web.
Yeah, and then the next page he's like, oh hey, I'll test out my new abilities here in the ring. It's like, I'll take your challenge, Crusher.
Oh yeah, this Crusher Hogan. You were saying before we talked that they actually showed like what happened to Crusher Hogan.
Oh yeah, so that was another comic I read as a kid. It was I think it was Amazing Spider-Man. I think I took a screenshot of it. Yeah, it was called Whatever Happened to Crusher Hogan. And it was Ron Friends. What's that?
I was like, what a thing that nobody cares about. But then I'm actually very interested in asking you, like, what did happen to Crusher Hogan?
Well, yeah, that's what, like, when I was reading this Amazing Fantasy 15 and that I came to that, page 7 or whatever is with Crusher Hogan. I was like, oh, I remember that comic where they, he comes back. And then I just went online and found that someone had done like a blog post about that. It's 271, issue 271, if anyone wants to. And it has like, the cover's weird because it's Spider-Man's black costume was like my favorite era of Spider-Man when he came back from, we've talked about that.
Designed by a fan, right?
I think it was suggested by a fan, but I think the actual design was Mike Zeck.
Okay, nice.
One of my favorite cover artists back then too.
Yeah, we were talking
the
about
Punisher miniseries.
Did you see the kayfabe thing where they went through some G.I. Joe stuff recently?
What is it? Kayfabe? I don't know that.
Kayfabe.
Oh, comics kayfabe. I should listen to that. I haven't listened to that yet.
Yeah, that's a good one. They went through the Michael Golden G.I. Joe.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, and they talk about the Mike Zeck covers and how good they are.
Cool. Yeah, I should start tuning into those guys. I like those dudes.
Yeah, they're good dudes.
Yeah, so it was Tom DeFalco and Ron Friends that did that issue, but it was weird because like the cover is this completely it doesn't say anything about Crusher Hogan. Like it's Spider-Man who looks like he's in the black costume and he's all like laying on the ground like he just got messed up. And crushed. Over him is this, you kind of see like, it's almost like a silhouette or something, I think, but like it's just like a big dude with his back turned to the reader, and he's kind of looming over, and it's like mayhem is a man called manslaughter. So you're like, you think the comic's going to be about this big baddie, but that guy's hardly in it at all. And like Spider-Man dispatches him like so easily. I was like, oh, that's like false advertising. They're like, why didn't you open up with like why isn't the cover like, what happened to Crusher Hogan? Like that would have been such a.
I wonder if at that point anyone remembered his name.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're probably right. It wasn't the same kind of fan service as back then as it is now.
Also, it makes me wonder with like the name Hulk Hogan is like Hogan like a classic? I guess, there's Hogan's Heroes. It's just kind of a World War II era name.
Yeah. Like the tough guy from the 60s.
Yeah.
Named Hogan.
Yeah, Hogan's not the name of somebody like, oh, and then I pushed down Hogan and got his lunch money.
Well, one of the 3 Warriors 3 in Thor is named Hogan.
Crusher Hogan, that's what happened to him.
He turned into an Asgardian.
He beat me up so bad I went to Asgard.
Yeah, so he just like takes up this guy to the top of the pole, which I felt like they did pretty good in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie.
Oh, I remember that, yeah. And wasn't it a famous wrestler in it?
Oh, you're right. I think it was. It was
like a Macho Man or a
yeah, I think it might have been Macho Man Randy Savage, possibly.
yeah. Spider-Man dresses up in um, his weird spider outfit, his early outfit where he just puts like a scarf over his face.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's oh yeah, he does that in yeah, when he fights Crusher Hogan. So
Mm-hmm.
he must like go home to do it, right? Yeah, he sees the poster and then I think he goes home and puts the mask on. Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So it's filled with excitement. Pete races back home.
Okay.
This narration's getting so cozy with him just calling him Pete. Like, come on, dude. Keep some decorum.
Yeah, but it's like, yeah, it's weird. It's like each page is like oh, basically like
Like it's a scene. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
There's also something that there's a couple things that point that were interesting about when he's first making his Spider-Man costume. He's fully just working on it when Aunt May and Uncle Ben like
Yeah, they're
are
not. What are you
come home.
doing, Peter?
Yeah, it's just like, oh, just working on a weird circus outfit. Sure, we don't care.
They're so clueless. Aunt May, come on. I mean, how long did she not know he was Spider-Man? You know, I think they retcon that later, and she's like, "I have always known" or something. But like,
Sure, you did. Where's his parents? Tell us that.
I like this how he basically when he makes his web shooters, he said something like, "He's like, this is something only a science major could do." It's like, no, that's something only like a super genius that has
Yeah,
never existed throughout time could do. Is make those web shooters like with the web
yeah,
fluid. Like he basically like invents like a new element or something
yeah. It's kind of like
in
magic.
like two panels.
Yeah, he's like, oh, time to go home and make magic.
I heard that's why they changed it in the Raimi movie was that it seemed too far fetched that like some kid could get spider powers and also be smart enough to make web shooters. So they just had they had him like Miguel O'Hara where it was like the web shooters are in his arms.
I kind of like that though because it makes him almost like this, like working class, like Iron Man, where he,
Exactly. Well, that's what they do in the new Spider-Man movies. I don't know if you watch those, but like
you know,
they have like a relationship, like a friendship. Him and
also
Tony
it's just
Stark.
gross that stuff comes out of his body that he's swinging around on.
Yeah, true.
You know,
Yeah,
like,
it's like, well, I think they make a joke about that in Spider-Man 2099 where he says something like, well, at least the webs don't come out of my butt. You know, it's like, yeah, that would make way more sense. It would come out of your spinner X, like the thing in your whatever that abdomen area is.
yeah.
Like that's where the webs come out of.
There was a later Cerebus Dave Sim thing where it had a Spider-Man parody where he was just basically jerking off and shooting webs out.
Oh, that's terrible. Dave
Yeah.
Sim, what are you doing?
Ugh.
It's like you gave up everything in your life to draw those pages.
Yeah.
It's like I gotta relate everything.
Yeah, it's worth. Yeah, it's just
comics.
like cut everything out of your life that isn't as important as this. And it's like, wow, you must be working on this seminal work. And it's just like, it's like Spider-Man, but his pee is spiderweb.
It's kind of meta though, in a way, you know. It's like
Yeah, but I don't know, isn't there something about that about just doing? It's probably about doing anything with your life that isn't like it's weird doing something like comic books for a living and how it does kind of create these moments where you're just like, what am I doing? Like as opposed to like going out there and like being a heart surgeon every day where you're like, oh
yeah.
another child gets to see its mother's eyes and we're just like, I'm just fucking wrecking my back and my life so I can sit around and draw a little dog running around on laser beams.
Yeah, at least if you're like Nate Powell, who gave himself shingles, by the way, working on March.
Oh yeah.
Because he worked so hard, you know, doing that. But at least with that, it's like, oh, this is like rewarding because like I'm telling the story of this like great man, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like I'm doing something good for the world by like, you know, putting this in the hands of people that, you know, might not know about this guy, you know.
Yeah, I suppose. But my narcissism wants to say that like I like seeing like I'd almost rather see somebody's like personal inner story. Like I'm
right. I'm not trying to judge Dave Sin for drawing. He can draw whatever he wants. You know?
Yeah, but and I don't know why I'm like oof. Because I do think that balance is really important of like having a good life but also drawing stuff. You know what I mean? You don't want to be like some indoor kid that never experiences things in their life, but then it's just like, but I drew so many pictures of people experiencing things.
I got all those stacks of paper.
Yeah.
That scribbles on.
Look at how many sexy She-Hulks I drew.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest reasons it's been hard for me to work lately, because I can't seem to figure out a way to ever have that balance, you know, to like
It either eats
be able to have any kind of life and still be productive, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. It's always a, you know, it always feels like spinning plates. And
well, it's like everything's hard, man. You got to fight for everything in life, you know?
that is very true. The part 2 of Spider-Man that starts like 7 pages into it is immediately on television. By like page 7, he's already on television.
Oh, right. Yeah. Oh, okay. So the guy that's trying to get him to stop Uncle Ben's killer, the guy running in the hallways.
The cop who's just...
Yeah, so is he a security guard, or is he the same cop that's like the police captain that you see later? Because he looks exactly the same.
Let me skip my head, because there was, so
looks
basically...
like Gwen Stacy's dad, basically.
Oh, yeah, because...
So on page 11 or whatever that is, where he's chasing him to the elevator, he's like, "You could have stopped him." Oh, by the way, I think it's like the 4th panel.
There was
a
mustache
such a
difference.
Ditko face, if there ever was a Ditko face, the profile of the mugger guy.
Oh, yeah. I wonder if eventually we can cut these videos and actually have the images up there. Because, early Ditko faces are so specifically Ditko. Also, there's so many janky, wonky Spider-Man faces in the early one.
Well, the one panel, he has eyes. Did you see that? He has pupils.
Oh, yeah. But at the dramatic thing when he, realizes that he's Ben's killer. Oh, something else I made a note of is they talk about Ed, getting him on the Ed Sullivan show on these.
Uh-huh.
And that's always really funny to me, that time stretch of Spider-Man where it's just like Spider-Man was on if he was in the era of Ed Sullivan, and also he's 30 years old in 9/11.
Oh yeah, it makes no sense. It's like Nick Fury, like being in World War II and stuff. You know, it's like, and they had to say like, "Oh, you have some of the super soldier serum in you, and that's how you're able to be alive still. You know, still look young."
Yeah. Guys, I was saying that to my girlfriend the other day because she was talking. I was looking at X-Men comic, and it was like Magneto was dating one of the other mutants that was like more recent, and I was like, wasn't this guy in World War II? He's like, he's like one of those mutants that lives much longer.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still...
Well, they had to kind of, like when they did the X-Men movies too, they could get away with it then, because it's like, okay, Ian McKellen could have been maybe a little kid in a concentration. You know, it's like, it's still kind of pushing it, but like now it's like, forget about it. So that's what seemed like they had to do that whole First Class thing where it's sort of, they retconned everything and tried to make it line up. And then you look at like whoever plays the Professor X there, and Patrick Stewart, who played, you know, it's like, well, he's still, there's only like supposed to be like a couple years difference between that first X-Men movie and he's like, what is he, aged like 30 years? And like,
he had a rough summer.
It's like, that's what I like about comics. Like that doesn't have to make sense. I think once you start trying to like, you know, retcon all that stuff or try to figure it out and like, oh, this has to line up with this. It's like, no, just tell a different story. And just like, this is this type of character, like tell a Spider-Man story that doesn't involve any normal timeline. It's just maybe that's Spider-Man story.
Of just keeping out of like the World Trade Center and World War II happening, as you can just tell these stories and make them kind of, but there's weird things like Ed Sullivan is such a like timestamp on a thing.
Oh yeah, or like having Elvis in the background, or like
but
Muhammad Ali versus Superman.
I mean that one's fantastic. But wouldn't it'd be kind of cool if there was like a TV show they all watched in the Marvel universe that was like an Ed Sullivan or a Letterman or something? That would be kind of cool to have. Yeah,
well, that's one of the things I like about, even though it's set in New York, it's like all the things that are stand-ins for the real thing. You know, like ESU, I imagine that's kind of like, is that supposed to be at Columbia or NYU? Probably like NYU, right? Sure. And then you got the Daily Bugle, which I don't know, it's not supposed to be New York Times, but it's probably like one of those like New York Press or one, you know, I don't know, one of those like more, I guess because they had more newspapers back then too, you know.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I like all
Before
that kind
John Byrne took all the trees for his She-Hulk erotica. So I don't know if the cop that, so Spider-Man's biggest dick move is when he's like, going on television and being Spider-Man, and then a thief runs by, and
Yeah,
for some
all he
reason,
has to do, the guy says, all you have to do is trip him. He's like, you could have tripped him or hold him just for a minute.
it's also a weird thing. Like, can you imagine a cop coming up to you and being like, "Why did you tackle that thief?" And it's just like, dude, you're the guy in the uniform.
Yeah, I'm wearing long underwear types. Didn't you read the first page?
Yeah. Also, does he even know that he's like can see anything in that? Like, if you ran by a guy in a Darth Vader outfit, and you're just like, "Why didn't you tackle that guy?"
Yeah, like yeah, he's basically talking to a normal person. It's like, okay, I know you just let a bad guy get away, but like, why are you in that crazy suit? What's going on? Like, he doesn't even turn his head twice at him. That's what I'm thinking. He must be like a security guard that works at the television studio, right?
Which is also weird too, because it's like it's your job to catch.
Yeah, but it's like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know why I'm getting so hung up on this. Is like he looks exactly the same as the police captain.
There's a
And why would the
mustache
police
difference.
captain be there chasing down a?
But because he's a police captain, he has a mustache.
He's wearing the same clothes. He's got white hair, same nose. Like
White hair
it looks like
and
the same
dark
guy.
and black eyebrows, but he has a mustache.
Oh, the police captain doesn't have a mustache?
Yeah. No, the police captain has the mustache. The
This guy
guard
doesn't?
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. Okay, that almost looks like the colorist decided he was.
I think he grew a mustache because it's his like his night job. He's like security guard, and then he like moonlights as a police captain.
He does have a PD thing on his collar. So
he
he's a
just
cop.
changed his clothes. Yeah.
He's a straight up cop.
Oh, the guy. Yeah. Yeah, it's so weird. Just also like maybe Spider-Man's all like fuck the police. You know, he's like I'm not doing your dirty work.
Well, yeah, but I mean, Peter was beyond a dick. I mean, beyond being a dick there.
Yeah, I know he was whole.
Especially like he's like, sorry, pal, it's your job. I'm through being pushed around by anyone. It's like he wasn't pushing you around. He's just asking him to stop that criminal. What the heck?
It's a weird interaction though, because the guy like doesn't capture someone, and then he's like, "What's with you, Mister?"
Well, I know too, because
trip him or hold him for a minute. Like that's a lot.
I'm thinking like you could call the lobby and say like, "Don't let that guy get off the elevator."
Yeah.
You know, like, or call your cop buddies or something and be like, "There's a guy gonna run." You know, you'd think like, I know they don't have like cell phones back then, but like, doesn't he have like a radio or something? I mean, couldn't?
Yeah, totally.
I don't know.
Oh, you know what it is they got the security guard cop guy then yelled at the closing elevator door like, "Oh, this guy could have stopped you. Go kill his uncle."
That was like, has this like, I don't know if this is like a trope because I can't really think of any other examples where this kind of thing has happened, but this story is such like a big part of my childhood. Like the great power comes great responsibility. Like, oh, you had a chance to do the right thing, but you didn't, and you paid a price for it, and that's like changed you to become this like person that is so racked by guilt. You're always trying to like make up for it.
It seems very EC Comics. I think the interesting thing about Spider-Man is it just continues. Like normally I feel like a story like this would end with like, oh no, you messed up and now you'll never get your uncle back.
Well, was that the original idea, was that they just did this as like a one-off? Because they're talking about it like it's the new, I mean, Stan Lee's, you know, hyperbole is like, this is the new best superhero on the scene. But I felt like it was like, that was a hit, so they just were like, oh, let's just make a Spider-Man series now. And they can't, this was like the last issue of Amazing Fantasy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you know that before this, it was called Amazing Adult Fantasy?
Oh, wow. That's a different genre entirely.
Yeah, I went on the Wikipedia and it was like, because adult, I guess, didn't mean the same thing.
Sure.
I think they were trying to get rid of the comics book for kids kind of thing. So it's like, oh, we're going to call this Amazing Adult Fantasy.
There's that thing too, like, you know how like 17 magazine was like, it's made for 13-year-olds, but they call it 17 to be like, it's for cool adult teens.
Yeah.
So maybe it's like that kind of thing, is you're selling it to kids still, but you're like cool adult fantasy, and like 15-year-olds will be like, I want to see that, because it's still like a guy in a Spider-Man outfit.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I mean, clearly when they made this, or at least in this printing, they know that Spider-Man's going to be going somewhere else, because they're even called him like a new teenage idol. Calm down, Stanley.
So all these newspapers here, there isn't a Daily Bugle. It's the Daily Voice, the Viewer, Daily Chronicle, and can't read that last one.
Oh yeah, because they have a thing where Spider-Man is like on a bunch of TV shows.
Yeah, it's like showing it's basically like a long, because this comic's mostly in a 9-panel grid,
Yeah.
but a lot of pages will have like 6 panels and then like a long panel across the top or in the
Yeah,
middle.
it's like a montage.
Yeah, and this is like the top of I don't know, page 12 or whatever that is, where he's doing like all of his stunts on like Ed Sullivan or whatever. And he's got like a manager too that's like, don't give him too much, kid.
Yeah, he's got a manager. Also, even when he's famous Spider-Man, he still dresses like in this weird Peter Parker. Like when he's Peter Parker, he has like a vest and a tie always.
Yeah, he's always got the same out. It's like Archie Andrews or something. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm always wearing this sweater vest and the same pair of pants.
It's especially nerdy, yeah. But yeah, it's crazy. It all fits into like 11 pages.
Yep. Yeah. So page 9, he's like going out for revenge because he just finds out his uncle's killed, and then you don't. This struck me as strange too. Is like when he's in the warehouse with the criminal guy, who actually I think they did some issues with him too. They brought that guy back, and the reason why he broke into their house and killed Uncle Ben was because he had buried money in the walls of the house.
Oh, interesting.
And he was going there to retrieve it, but then I guess like when he went to get it was like all the money had been eaten by silverfish or something. Oh no, that was it. He killed Uncle Ben because he was planting the money in the wall, and then so like later when you see him in like much later in Amazing Spider-Man or wherever, he goes back to get the money, and it turns out it was all eaten by bugs.
Oh, why is his house so gross that he's got like
silverfish? Lots of people have silverfish.
Yeah, but not enough to. But enough to just eat all.
Maybe over like 10 years or something. That was
okay.
I don't know. Also, comics, man. Come on.
Also, Uncle Ben was like 78 years old when he died. He was a full.
It's 95. Yeah. Such a good guy, though, man. He loved his nephew. But the weird part to me was that this bank robber guy, even though he's in shadows, so we don't know who he is yet, he doesn't recognize Spider-Man from the lobby earlier. Because he says like, good thing that kid didn't try to stop me. Ha ha ha. And he's like laughing in the elevator. But here he's acting like he doesn't know who this guy is or has never seen him before.
Well, he also is like, gotta get away, gotta hide, must be seeing things. So he's just weirded out that there's the guy climbing the wall in an outfit.
Yeah.
Also, something interesting is I always remembered in later versions, I think, when his uncle dies, he like says to him like with great power comes great responsibility, and that in this one he doesn't even see his uncle. It's just a cop is like, by the way, your uncle's dead, and he's like, oh, gotta go catch the murderer.
Oh, you're right, yeah.
Also, it's kind of funny that like he's so distraught and he still like goes up to his room and puts on a Spider-Man costume to go stop the guy. Like that seems like an extra step that you would take out. Like if I was drawing this comic, I feel like I would be like, why would he put on his outfit? Just go murder the guy.
It totally makes sense to me. Because he was going to murder him. He was going to kill that guy.
So your version is more premeditated than mine.
Oh yeah, I'm like, yeah. If like I found someone killed my beloved uncle like that, you bet I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna murder this guy. Like, what do I do? You know. So he's probably thinking, how do I get away? I'll put this, also strike terror in the heart. And he's been wearing this outfit for a while now. He's been changing into it like maybe every day or like every week. Going on television and learning his powers and all that stuff. So I feel it's probably just sort of his natural inclination to be like, oh, I'm going to go get this guy and put on my outfit and do it,
He's like, I either got a pantsuit with a vest or I got my circus outfit.
Yeah, with the web shooters and all the... Well, this is weird because I love the way Ditko drew, which they didn't seem like they did as much later, but how he's basically it's like red and black with a little bit of blue highlights sometimes.
Oh yeah,
it's mostly just like red and black.
The weird armpit things that they have, where it's like webbing from here.
I don't mind those because it's like I noticed that he'd have those in some of the ones I read in the '80s and stuff, and I think you could use them to sort of help.
Were they kind of off and on? They're not always there, are they?
No, yeah, it seems like it kind of depends on who the artist is. But this is weird too on this this page here, 13, where it's like. 10 or whatever that is, page 10. The spider on his back is blue. Is that because it's in the dark? Or is that just the way he drew it?
I think it's always blue.
No.
Well, in
It's
this one,
red in like later issues.
in later ones, yeah. Just in this early Ditko thing, it's always blue.
Oh, okay. So it's, oh yeah, you're right, because in the previous page it's blue too. I don't know why I never noticed that before. It's weird.
Yeah, well, it does give it like because it is the same color as the kind of blue highlight, so it almost looks like it's a shine in the shape of a spider.
Yeah, instead of putting a big red target on your back, you're gonna try to blend in the shadows more.
Yeah, I was thinking. So this issue of Amazing Fantasy 15, it has 3 other stories in it, and they're all much more self-contained, kind of like fantastical stories. But I'm surprised that nobody's taken them. Maybe they have. I was thinking if they took them and tried to incorporate them into the Marvel universe. You got a cat.
I got 2 cats. I had one sit in my lap already, so he was about to jump on him. Oh, there he goes, buddy. You don't have to go.
There's the bell ringer.
Oh, right. Yeah, I didn't care for that story too much, I gotta say.
So
sorry, Stan.
The extent of it is just like there's a guy in a church who's ringing a bell a lot when an island's on fire, and then like some aliens.
Yeah, he rang the bells for the ships when it was in the fog, so they could hear. He's like, someone always hears the bells. I have to ring it every day. And then a volcano erupts. So there's like lava's flowing, and they're all like, oh, we're all going to leave on the boat so we don't die. And he's like, no, I have to stay here and ring the bell. Someone might hear. Someone's got to hear it. I was like, why though? Like, why? Like, you're going to die. Like, it didn't make any sense. And then like at the end, the shaft of light comes, and God heard. I guess that was the thing. It's like someone did hear him ringing.
Or aliens.
Or aliens.
Or gods and aliens.
I mean, I thought it was like a metaphor of like, oh, he got burned up and got ascended to heaven, and the people watching were like, oh.
And the other one I liked, like I was actually thinking if they continued, because the middle story in the book is called Man in the Mummy Case. And these are all Lee and Ditko too, I should mention. But that one is basically like a criminal is running away and he goes into a museum and a mummy's like, hide inside of my casket. And he gets in, and then they like.
He's like, "You're not going to turn me into a mummy, are you?" He's like, "I promise, I won't turn you into mummy."
Yeah. And then the end of the story is just basically like shot him into ancient Egypt, and he's working on the pyramids in his like business suit.
Yeah, he's a slave in a 3-piece suit.
Yeah, which is kind of cool. Like that would be a whole story if you're like, okay, now you're a modern day or a 1950s American who's a slave in ancient Egypt. Like I'd read that.
Yeah, it's like a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court, or whatever that is.
Yeah.
Mark Twain story. But except that the guy, I was saying before we started recording how like that story in particular, but all of them kind of in general reminded me of those EC comics.
Yeah.
Like House of Mystery or whatever, like Tales from the Crypt or any of those things, where it's like it's like they're horror stories, but it's like the criminal gets what they deserve kind of in the end,
Yeah, and the last one's called There Are Martians Among Us, and it's just basically like they find an alien spaceship and they're like, where are the Martians? And it shows like a family, kind of like a guy and his wife, and he's just like, this is nonsense, there's no Martians. And then at the end he's got like 4 arms.
You know what? I don't think I read that one. I must have missed the third story. I just read the first two.
And there's so many like bodybuilding things and like all the ads are like
I noticed that the ads those were great. Yeah, it's weird. It's like they didn't have the Hero of the Beach one, the Atlas one.
Yeah, but they're all just like, and it's funny because a lot of them will be like a photograph of just like a bodybuilder guy, and then there'll be like drawings of women around him fawning over him, which just seems really inauthentic. It's just like, look at all these made up women that'll like you.
I like the one that was like it was like learn how to repair air conditioners, and it's like 2 Xerox pictures of like the innards of machine parts and stuff, or just like out of context. You're like, what is that? Like, so it's just a strange ad of like, yeah, that looks attractive. I want to learn how that thing works.
Yeah, but I guess if you're just like, what am I going to do with my? One of them is a giant 10-foot inflatable boa constrictor.
Oh, I took a screen cap of that one because I'm like, I want one of those. I wonder if there's like, is there anywhere online? $298.
$298, which you could buy an island with back when it
comes my secret new Dynaflex method.
Oh, is Dynaflex one of the like weird
Muscle Man ones.
Muscle Man things.
I really like the page
that name is Mike Marvel too.
Oh yeah, I noticed that. Yeah,
Mike Marvel.
They got the classic, the page that's like a classifieds ads almost, where all the teeny tiny little boxes of ads.
Oh yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, there's so many. One of them just says poems wanted, an ad by no one.
There's some pretty strange drawing going on in this Be a Powerhouse of Muscles. The famous hip pocket gym. Fear no one. Build a body of steel.
There's a live seahorses one right next to learn any dance fast. Learn any dance fast if taught by live seahorses. Yeah,
Look, learn all those dances.
Yeah, teach me all your seahorse dances.
This system is so effective, it is used by U.S. veterans hospitals to help rebuild health and vigor in wounded.
Oh, God, I could use some more health and vigor.
Yeah, you've been feeling a little lethargic lately?
I don't know. No, actually, I would tell you, I've got a gym in my building I moved into, and I've been running on a machine lately.
Oh, I knew you had a gym in that building, but you're actually utilizing it. That's huge. That's good.
Yeah, it's half guilt-ridden, half that my girlfriend is like actually an affected human being and will.
You know how I knew you had a gym in your building?
Hmm?
You know how I knew it?
How'd you know?
Because there's a big window on the Burnside Bridge.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Bridge, people running on treadmills.
Yeah. That is, they do really let the world know that there's a thing there.
Mm-hmm. That is the building you live in. Do you feel proud that it has transformed the landscape, the cityscape that I once knew? You know?
I have a weird relationship with Portland because I never felt like this was a city I lived in until I'm kind of after several years. I guess I've been here 3 years. I'm starting to feel like, okay, this is a city, and I'm fine with the changing aspects of it because it's kind of new to me.
Well, I like where you live now way better than the neighborhood you lived in the first couple years.
My windowless apartment. Yeah.
Yeah, or just that little area too. It's it's kind of intense for me. I mean, you got Powell's, which is awesome, but
sure,
it's
yeah.
It's about the opposite you can get from where I live.
Yeah. No, this side of town is nice, and I like. I'm on this weird street that almost feels like it's kind of nowhere. It's kind of below. You have to take these stairs down. It's below this other the kind of main.
It's 3rd Street, right?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I think it's the same street that you get into the town storage building, which is right across the bridge from you.
Oh yeah.
That's where me and Gabriel used to have our studio space
that was a good
when
studio,
I first moved to town.
Yeah.
And now they're down by the Morrison Bridge in the Portland storage building.
How is it going to your studio now to go work?
Well, not yesterday, but 2 or 3 days ago was the first time I'd went and since basically the start of the whole lockdown type pandemic stuff. I went a little bit at first, and then it just kind of got too gnarly, and I was just
Yeah, going downtown is really, it's so much more dramatic now. Every time I go downtown, I see today there was just a guy in the street just screaming at cars passing by.
Mm-hmm. Sorry about that. That was probably me.
That was you. No, but a couple weeks ago, I was down there, and there was just literally almost on the same block. There's just somebody just taking a shit in the middle of the street, and
Yikes.
this is middle of downtown.
Oh yeah, when I lived in the Northwest, wherever you would, where that Trader Joe's is over on 23rd or 21st Street or whatever.
Sure.
I lived in an apartment right there, so I would bike through downtown a lot. If I was going to roadside or something, and I'm going home. I saw so much crazy stuff happening, especially on the weekends. When there's
okay, because I think part of it is just that there's nothing going on there now, so it's no one's going to stop you from taking a shit and screaming in the street.
Oh yeah, I guess you're right. Now it's all post-apocalyptic there.
Because this was all at 9 in the morning.
Oh wow.
So that's That's
Yeah,
my
that's
report. And it's funny too, because
broad daylight.
I'll talk to people constantly, and they'll just be like, how's Portland doing? And I'm like, I'm fine here. And then I'll go downtown and I'll be like, screaming person is taking a shit. Okay.
It's like a few blocks away, people are like fighting for their lives and freedoms, and
well, you gotta go shit somewhere.
Yeah.
In the street. Yeah, no, it's a lot. There's a lot going on here.
Yeah, because you were like fairly close to the protest before, right? Where you lived?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my girlfriend works there.
At City Hall?
At the courthouse.
Courthouse, okay.
Yeah. You can't fight City Hall.
No. I fought the law and the law won, so.
I don't know how long you want to keep talking, but the other thing is we both watched that Jesus Shows You the Highway movie recently.
Jesus shows you the way to the highway.
Jesus shows you the way to the highway. Yeah,
isn't that what it says? Isn't that the title of it?
I think so. Yeah, it's a weird it's a cross. It was in Estonia, the country of Estonia, and the country of Cambodia, I think.
Oh, okay.
Made it together with a Spanish director.
Oh wow. Okay, that explains a lot.
Yeah.
Like no recognizable actors.
No. The really, main character is like a little person who's from Ethiopia.
Yeah, is he technically a little person, or just have like kind of like a body, some kind of like I thought he had maybe like multiple sclerosis or something. He had some kind of.
I don't know. He's something. He's got some kind of physical thing going on, but yeah. So basically, the gist of it is just there's like he's a member of the CIA. And they kind of go into this 1980s Matrix world that's all like stop motion with.
But first you have to say that like everybody's dubbed for some weird reason. Like,
oh yeah,
probably because of the multinational vibe of it. They're just like, oh, let's just overdub everyone's voice. So
yeah.
They can just speak whatever language, their native language. It's like a spaghetti western style kind of.
Right. Yeah. And so they go into this kind of Matrix thing, and they film stop motion with people.
Yeah, I really like that, and especially the part that like the wearing the Xerox of their face over their real face.
It's not their face though, because the main guy is Richard Pryor's face.
Oh, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, because it kind of has that look. But yeah, and then the other guy is like I didn't recognize the actor, but then the villain is like is it Lenin or Stalin? Oh,
that's right. Yeah, Stalin, I think.
Yeah, and so it's this weird like they're going into and then this other thing where the main character also has like a bodybuilding girlfriend, and their dream is to open up a gym, and he wants to have he loves pizza, and he wants to have a pizza. So there's like this very intense CIA thing going on, and then he's just like, but soon we'll run away, and I'll have a pizza stand, and she'll have a gym, and she's like a big blonde kind of Scandinavian looking bodybuilder woman.
Yeah, she she starts hooking up with kind of heartbreaking. She starts hooking up with another dude.
Oh yeah, spoilers.
While he's stuck in the I'm spoilerizing it.
No, that's fine. It's a very I mean the main thing about the movie is just how it doesn't feel like anything else.
Well, it definitely has like a retro vibe to it. Like I feel like it looks like on purpose they're trying to make it look kind of like an old, like all the 80s references and stuff, like all the computers, everything's like these big push buttons. Like it looks like, we made this in the 80s and we thought this was like futuristic looking or something. Yeah,
but it's different. Yeah. It definitely feels like, it's funny how explaining, I feel like it being Estonian, Cambodian explains the look of it. Cause you're like, that's the only reason that would.
Yeah, well, when I saw the trailer, I was like, oh, this is like the Turbo Kid or something like that, where it's like, we're trying to make like a cult movie. We're trying to make like a weird...
But this one feels a little even more authentically weird. Like the villain
totally. Yeah, when I started watching it, I was like, oh, this is crazy.
Yeah, this is like just actually weird. Like, yeah, because the villain is the president of Cambodia, and he is dressed as Batman with his like bat signal pixeled out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Yeah, there's so much stuff. It's so hard to explain it without, I don't know. Yeah, it's weird because it's like the visuals are such like this big part of it. It's like how bizarre everything is.
Yeah, it's weird. I wrote down there's a character named Mr. Sophistication in it.
Oh,
So that
nice.
was a fantastic name.
That is a good name.
Um, yeah, so
Yeah,
many. Yeah,
the yeah, like because the main guy has this like I guess like a disability or something. Like I was kind of nervous watching it. I was like, are they kind of like exploiting this guy or like making fun of him or but then like I didn't get that vibe at all. Like like by the time I was done with it, I was like, oh no, that was like they didn't really.
oh,
I didn't
interesting.
feel
Yeah,
like they did anyway. By
no, he just feels like
just like an actor who's playing that role.
yeah, and it's there's something really cool about seeing like a type of person that you're not used to seeing playing like a heroic role.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil the ending, but I did like that the titular line was saved at the end.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Where I was like, oh, okay, he's literally showing him the way to the highway.
It goes in really dramatic. It goes in very weird directions I did not expect.
Yeah, yeah, totally. That was what I liked about it was the ending, specifically the ending.
Yeah.
That was the biggest part. I was like, oh, cool. Okay, I like. It took me on these like twists and turns, and I kept thinking it was going to end. I was like, okay, I guess that was fine. But then it's like, oh no, that was like a really great ending. How they ended it.
Yeah, and it was surprisingly watchable too for how weird it was.
Yeah, I agree. Although I did have to watch it in 2 parts.
Yeah, I think that's good. I oftentimes, I think that's a good thing. I like to tell myself that when I have to take breaks in watching something, it means that my life is not just watching things.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, oh, 2 hours is a lot to put into something,
Yeah, there's some days where I won't watch anything and I'll be like, oh, that's pretty good today. I just worked until I went to bed. That's awesome. But then I also have those days where I'm like, I watched 6 hours of television today.
Yeah, no, I think those are just going to happen. Where you're just like, I'm just going to make it through a season of a thing. Oh, that reminds me, I saw a really good show called Upload. Have you seen that one?
Mm-mm.
It's about a guy who basically it's a future world where there's like kind of matrixy heavens they put people in.
Okay.
And so a guy gets hurt in an accident and they put him in like his girlfriend is like a rich girl and she puts him in her heaven. And so she's in charge of like his everything he buys and like how he lives and dresses him and all this stuff. And he's just like supposed to be living in this ideal world, but it's just like a weird computer simulation of it.
Huh.
It's pretty fun. It kind of has a feeling of like The Good Place.
Okay. I like that Good Place show.
Yeah.
I was telling you before we started that you should watch Fargo, the TV show Fargo, which you haven't seen any of the seasons yet, right?
No, I've only seen the movie, and it's not one of my favorite Coen Brothers movies, but.
Oh, I like the movie a lot, but like I love the Coen Brothers, so it's like Raising Arizona is like probably like number 1. Like I got like there's a lot before the movie because Fargo is like I feel like their big Hollywood hit.
Yeah,
right?
which always confused me because there's a lot of their movies like I really like obviously Big Lebowski and Hudsucker Proxy.
When that came out after Fargo, and a lot of people when it came out in this theater, I remember hearing from friends like they didn't like Big Lebowski when it came out because they were expecting like a Fargo.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so then I felt like Big Lebowski got kind of more popular throughout time, where it's like cult following status,
Oh yeah, I was watching Brick tonight. You seen that movie, right?
Oh, great movie, man.
Yeah, and I was thinking about the Big Lebowski because they're both this kind of Raymond Chandler detective things placed in another setting.
Totally. Well, you'd like the series though because I don't. The way it's set up is like each season it's a different setting, different character. So none of the series is retelling that story. But it's cool. Like thematically it's similar in that they open every episode pretty much like this is based on a true story. Names were changed, out of courtesy for the dead or out of courtesy for the living, the events, whatever the tagline they use for the movie Fargo they use in this series.
Okay.
And so like each one is like all the seasons are great, but this season is set in Kansas City. No, Kansas City, Missouri. And like jazz era, I don't know the exact years, but I'm guessing like 30s or something like that, and it's like the story of these different immigrant gangs kind of coming to power, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like the first episode you watch, like it's something like the Jewish gangs that get sort of beaten by the Irish gangs, and the Irish gangs get beaten by the Italian gangs, and then now it's like the black gang coming in, and they're kind of butting heads with the Italians, and they sort of have to do this kind of like a lot, you know, treaty. But there are so many Coen Brothers references in this season. It's crazy.
Cool.
Like, and a lot of them from Raising Arizona. Like,
are they involved in making it at all?
I think they produce it,
Okay.
or at least they did the first couple seasons. But Noah Hawley, the guy who does Legion,
Mm-hmm.
is the showrunner.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's like his show.
Yeah,
and he writes a lot of it. Yeah.
I watched an episode of Legion, and it was really fun. Because I watched Legion and New Mutants the same day. And kind of a Marvel spin. And you haven't seen New Mutants yet, so we can talk about that later.
Yeah, we should do one where we talk about Legion and New Mutants. But like they say the line, "You have a panty on your head," which is from Raising Arizona. I don't know if you remember that. You have a panty on your head. And then the scene where like the Dale and Evil, you know, when they're coming out of the mud and they're first escaping prison. Yeah. There's like almost that exact same scene in the show. It's really weird. It's like cool. I mean, they're doing it on purpose, obviously, but there's like so many references. But the latest episode 9, is mind-blowingly good. Like it like took my breath away. I loved it, and it's like
that's cool.
All these like Wizard of Oz references. It's so amazing. I just haven't been able to talk to anyone about it. I just watched it last night.
That's awesome. I should check that out because it's.
Yeah, you can even watch them out of order. You could watch the 4th season first, and it wouldn't matter.
Okay.
Because they're each their own thing, you know.
I always dabble with stuff anyway. It's like it's more fun to just be like, let's try an episode of this and then move on to something else.
I don't know if you like Chris Rock, but he's like one of the main guys in it.
Interesting. I do like Chris Rock.
Yeah, you don't see him act a lot, but he's good. He's good.
Well, he did those couple movies. Like there was a Top 5.
I didn't see Top 5.
It's like kind of romantic comedy, and this kind of around the idea of everybody's like 5 favorite rappers.
Oh, I think I've seen a couple movies he's in. I saw one that was like him and Odin. What's that guy's name? Anthony Hopkins.
His name Anthony Odin. Oh, and he would be in like the Louis C.K. show for sometimes too.
Oh yeah, playing himself. Yeah. I love those when it was like Chris Rock and like Todd Barry and all those guys sitting around. That was a great part of that show.
Yeah, I really like
Louis. Moment of silence. Okay.
I've been listening to his podcast lately.
Oh, he has a podcast? Like a new one?
Yeah, it's him and his French girlfriend. They're really short episodes, and they've done like 5 of them or something.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Huh.
Yeah. But,
I'll check them out. Yeah, that have you watched Dave yet?
No, I don't know what that is.
Man, it is fantastic. I think there's only like 8 episodes, like 6 or 8 episodes, and it feels kind of like Louis, Broad City, maybe like Louis and Broad City kind of mashed together, but it's like I guess it's like a real rapper named Lil Dicky. Oh,
I know Lil Dicky, sure. Like
okay, so it's like him. He's the star.
Okay.
And and it's just kind of like about him kind of his career starting, basically.
Oh, interesting.
But he's got like a hit song or something, and then he's like, you know, just kind of the ins and out of like, I guess, being like a young rapper trying to make a go of it. And it's great. It's got like, the other show I was gonna say that it reminded me of too in a little bit of ways, the show Ted Lasso, where it's like it's just got like a lot of heart to it. So it's like it's got like that kind of Louis vibe, but then it's like, I guess the Broad City part is like, I guess the age of the characters in it, they're all young, you know. But the standout part of it for me is this guy Data, who's like his hype man. Mm-hmm. And that guy's amazing. Like,
you say Data, like Star Trek Data?
It's Data, like G-A.
Like gay Star Trek Data.
Yeah, it's like the gay Brett Spiner. No, I mean, that guy's awesome, man. I don't know. Gabriel recommended it to me, and it was like,
okay.
I watched, it took me like maybe like 3 or 4 days, and I watched, you know, I'd watch him like when I ate dinner or whatever, and it's really good. It's got a lot of heart, and and very enjoyable.
I should check that out. I want to tell you, I was reading some Pop Gun War yesterday. I'm really enjoying it.
Oh, thanks.
I was reading the one where where the astronaut crashes in the doll factory, and there's a flashback of kind of how he was like dying in space and got into the ship, and there's all the little panels.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, super fun.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I try to do a bunch of neat little stuff in that story, but that means a lot. You talking to me about it. I don't really have a lot of people. Remember when that book came out? It was like, well, it was coming out on an island, and it was like, I mean, I know some people were reading Island, but I just didn't get any response.
No, Island just felt like, yeah, it sucks because I was looking through Islands. That's when I ran into it, and there was like, remember Gail Bertrand did the story Tarot in there.
Yeah, it was incredible,
and it's like one of the most beautifully drawn comics that I'm aware of. You know?
Yeah,
and I was going through Islands, and I was like, I need to get the trade of this thing because I don't even know if I have all of it in the Islands. Yeah.
Oh wow! Oh, so you did put it out in the trade then?
Yeah, it came out in a hardcover.
Cool. Yeah, I should pick that up too.
Yeah, but it's one of those things that I don't see it anywhere.
They probably have one at Cosmic Monkey or something. Says Kevin.
Oh yeah. Cosmic Monkey's always very good. Here's what I picked up last time I was there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, is that Buscema?
I think it's Sal Buscema or something. No, it's David Ross.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
Because I didn't recognize the cover, but it kind of feels like one of those Tom Palmer. Was that who was writing those back when Buscema?
This is
Avengers.
Roy and Dan Thomas.
Oh, okay.
I don't know Dan Thomas. Right? You know, Roy Thomas is the Conan guy. He was going to be like Stan Lee's replacement in the 70s, I guess. But it's a fun issue. It's kind of racist. It's in Japan.
You say kind of racist?
It's kind of racist.
Mildly racist.
Yeah, because it's like...
It was the 70s or whatever.
Yeah. The only time somebody cared if someone was racist if you interrupted somebody else saying something racist. That's a Louis C.K. stand-up thing. Yeah, they're in Japan, and it like starts off with like Tigra saying like, if this guy bows one more time.
Oh wow!
Just to set the scene, and it's just like there's just like drawings of bamboo on every page, and it's just like, what are you doing here?
Sounds like a Al Hartley comic or something.
It's like somebody traveled back in time from 2020, and they're like, a comic set in Japan, let me get away with things I couldn't get away with in a modern day.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, yeah, I don't know. We're probably not the best guys to be talking about this kind of stuff anyway. I remember like watching that like second Wolverine movie, which is trash, obviously. Like those movies are garbage, you know. But I think because I was so disappointed by the first one, that it was just, the first one was just so laughably horrible. It was like, how could they make something this bad? That when the second one came out and had like ninjas and shit in it, I was just like, fuck yeah, okay, this is what I was waiting for, man. It's like, start chopping up people and stuff.
Yeah.
So I kind of enjoyed it, even though it was like, okay, I know this is garbage, but it's fun. Like, Hugh Jackman's cool as that guy, and it's like, you know, doing all this stuff that I liked in the comics, you know.
There's certain, yeah, not to get too into it, but I was saying about the New Mutants movie is it's the first time I saw a Marvel thing that I actually cared about, like the comic, because I read New Mutants.
It was like the characters that you knew and were familiar with versus Iron Man or whatever.
Yeah, totally. It's like Iron Man's fine, but yeah, I didn't really stick with Iron Man. I mean, there's a little bit of that.
It's like name the best Iron Man story. It's like the one where he was like an alcoholic, I guess. I kind of saw some of those panels.
Was Iron Man must have existed for decades before he was an alcoholic, though, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I remember reading in one of those, like, you know, Son of Origins or whatever, you know, the Stan Lee compilations where it was all the first issues of all the Marvel books.
Right.
So I read that one where he had the big gray armor and he was in Vietnam or something, right?
Okay.
Because it was like the 60s, so that would make sense. It was like some like Vietnam-esque type place where he's basically selling weaponry to these people, and then, you know, kind of like Tony Stark's kind of a villain, you know.
Yeah, dark times, Tony Stark.
And I think so that was in the 60s, and I think the alcoholic stuff maybe was in the 70s, maybe like late 70s.
Okay, because
I'm not an Iron Man guy, so I don't really.
I wonder if I wonder where it related in relation to the Speedy in DC Comics being a heroin addict.
Really? There was a guy named Speedy.
Yeah, you know,
did heroin.
Yeah.
Why didn't they have him do speed?
Maybe he did speed. I don't know.
Oh, okay. I was like, that's crazy.
Maybe his name was Heroin-y, and I'm just being the one.
Well, maybe he takes heroin because he's so hyper all the time. He's like, this is the only thing that gets me correct.
Fill me up. It's the Green Arrow story, the famous like Green Arrow's assistant.
Oh, with the blue aliens and the green people.
No, that's a different. But there was that same run. It was basically when like Neil Adams was like, let's like talk about social issues in Green Arrow, Green Lantern.
Which is cool. He did. I mean, those were like, those were game changers, right?
Yeah, I haven't read them that much. They feel, in retrospect, my memory of them feels heavy-handed, but I don't know if that was.
They're comic books, of course.
But I mean, there's Spider-Man issues where he like tackles real things, and you're just like, I remember them being.
The kid who collected Spider-Man, like that, got me, man.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm getting a little misty just thinking about it.
But I remember being like 13 and seeing them being like,
chills.
Always, yeah, when they're just like, you paid attention to the blue skins and the orange skin. I'm just like, come on, man.
Well, I didn't read that when it came out. Like the only place that I've seen those panels are in period, what do you call those? Magazines or blogs or whatever. They're talking about, oh, look, these were really important comics. And I was like, man, those are drawn amazing. Like,
yeah, was Neil Adams like
beautiful artist,
Was he ever like a force in your comic reading life as a kid?
Big time when Continuity came out. Okay. I was like, Armor, Sam Marie. I was like, I know too, I was like right at the right purview.
Let me see your idea
where I was like, man.
Sam Marie was borderline
every crease and wrinkle and yeah. Armor though, that Armor was my favorite because it was like there's two brothers that get kidnapped by aliens and they get turned into badass superheroes.
Okay.
And have to like fight their way out of these like evil alien people and get back to Earth. But it was kind of interesting because like those comics were notoriously slow. Like it'd be like one a year or something, or one like 6 months.
Because they're beautifully drawn, yeah.
Yeah, they're drawn so well. And Neil Adams, I think, is kind of like, even if he wasn't drawing it, he's like, you have to draw in my style. You have to draw like I do, So like Trevor Von Eden and different people like that, But they would have an ad in the back. I remember this of all the first issues of Continuity Comics, an ad in the back for the Crazy Man coming soon. And it was just like this guy laughing. He looked like the Joker. And it's like they had one short story of Crazy Man. I don't know if they ever put out a Crazy Man comic.
I remember Crazy Man, and I just remember it just looking like it sucked.
I was like intrigued by it. I was like, coming soon. What was that, like a year ago you're saying this?
Crazy Man, this looks crazy.
But they did an interesting thing where it's like they had another comic called Megalith that was like, he was basically like a big Superman guy, but he couldn't fly. He was like a strong man that just basically taught himself how to be super strong. And then they had a team comic called The Revengers, which was like Armor and his brother, which I can't remember the name of his brother, like Silver Streak or something like that. And it was them coming back from issue 1 started, them crash landing from the aliens that they escaped.
Oh, that's cool. So
the comic is like Megalith after he becomes a superhero and he teams up with these two brothers. And I think there's maybe Sam Marie's in the group too.
Sure.
But like I was reading Revengers comics, but I was still reading Armor comics where he's still on a ship. What's going on? It's like, oh, they're just telling the story, like the backstory of these characters.
That's really cool. I wonder how long we should research more about how long that publisher lasted, because I remember them very clearly, but I don't remember many issues past the first couple. Well,
and Miss Mystic, she was a Pacific Comics that it was a Neil Adams Pacific comic.
Oh, that was really beautifully drawn, Miss Mystic. I have some of those.
And that was they just re-put it out as a continuity comic, I think. But it was like the same art. Oh, and then Esteban Maroto did a science fiction story. It was really cool too. It's like a family.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Yeah, and that was all continuity. That was a great, and they had like nicer paper than newsprint.
Because there were some cool Pacific comics too. I have one of them called Vanity, I think, which is about a cave woman who steals a guy, who basically kills a guy from the future's spaceship and takes it.
I have no memory of that.
It's really fun.
Later one.
I mean, it's Pacific Comics, not.
Oh, Pacific Comics. Okay, yeah.
And that one was by the guy who went on later to draw DN Agents.
Oh, right. Okay, I never read that one.
I wasn't a giant DNA Agents fan, but I like Vanity a lot.
Well, DNA Agents, wasn't that created originally by Wally Wood?
I don't know.
Or am I thinking of some other comic?
I know Wally Wood. I remember hearing the story, and I haven't seen anything. So this might just be total bullshit. But I remember talking somebody saying that Wally Wood created Power Girl, and he would try to draw her chest larger every issue to see if he'd get away with it.
Oh, that would, yeah, I always thought that, I never read, obviously didn't read the DC stuff. I've mentioned that before, but
Sure.
nothing, there's anything wrong with them. I was just a Marvel kid, so.
I didn't know anyone who, it's like someone being like, I love Pepsi. You know, it's just like,
Yeah.
What's going on over there? Do your parents not love you?
That guy. Well, I did, there's a couple comics I bought. I remember when JLI, the Justice League came out with McGuire and Giffen and all those guys. I bought that. The issue 1, and then just didn't, I think Suicide Squad #1, I bought that too. But okay. I remember seeing ads for Power Girl and like, why are her breasts so large? Like, even as a kid, I was just like, what? That's
the nerve of you with a copy of Samory under your arm.
Yeah, well, she didn't have, there was more of just like, yeah, I'm sorry. I was a gross kid, whatever. I didn't have access to any, it was pre-internet, it's like.
No, I have copies of Samory in this room. I have no one to, this is a glass house I'm currently in.
I mean, it wasn't even like super sexual in that I was like masturbating to Samory.
Sure.
But I remember having conversations with my friends and being like, oh my God, you can like, is that what like a vagina looks like?
Yeah, you can see her uterus on the cover.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're intense.
Buddy got tired.
And I think one of the main artists on Samory went in to do adult comics afterwards.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm spacing on his name, but back when I worked for NBM, he was one of the other artists there.
That's when that book Armor taught me what butterfly knives were, or maybe I think it was Samory actually, the issue 1, because they actually called. I think Armor was in that, and he was like butterfly knives, and it was like the like kind of sort of, I don't even know what you call them, but they have like they're short and like a wide blade and a handle that has like a kind of like a covering over it.
Yeah, it's butterfly.
And that was like Armor's main weapons were these butterfly knives. So then it still kind of bothers me how people call balisong, the kind of knives you flip. Yeah. People call those butterfly knives. That's why I put it in the wrenchies, because it was like, no, those aren't butterfly knives. They feel like they are, but
You're like, don't you guys read Samory?
Yeah, exactly.
That's beautiful. Yeah, we should come up with a list of stuff to run through next time.
Sure.
Of continuity comics. What do you think? Should we call this one a day?
Yeah. I'm down for shutting it down.
It's good talking to you.
Yeah. How long have we been doing this for? A couple hours?
Sure. Why not?
Time has no meaning.
Let's see.
I got to do my daily drawing still. I haven't done one in like 4 or 5 days now.
Oh yeah, I got to do a commission tonight too.
So behind.
But yeah, I will stop this business and we can put it up later. So yeah, I guess thanks to people for paying attention.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.